in the long run, passivity won't pay off. It never pays off. If you want a life of meaning and transcendence, you're going to have to move. Aggression doesn't have to be toxic or damaging. Healthy aggression risks. It builds new things. It breaks through barriers. It's the key to living a life that matters. I'm Brian Tome, and this is The Aggressive Life. So let's talk about hypotheticals right now. If you found yourself alone in the wild, how long would you survive? A couple days, a week, maybe an hour? A few of us might go a little bit longer. But how about this? How about alone in the Arctic with only 10 items other than your clothing? Today's guest is a survival skills expert who did just that for 48 freaking days in the Arctic by the Arctic Circle. Michelle Wohlberg grew up on a farm in Canada. It put the wild into her bones, and after making her way through the corporate jungle, she left it all behind to homestead in rural Saskatchewan. Living with her husband and son, she is a leader and key influencer in the homesteading and survival communities. She's also the driving force behind Legacy Survival Training, where she teaches others with skills that she's learned. I know about Michelle because I recently got hooked on the show Alone. Hello. It is great. It is great. I watched the show Alone. It was, I only watched season 6, I think it was. Michelle was on there, and since I'm going back and working my way through, no spoilers for the show, but this woman is tough. She's a badass. She's a survivor who has loads to teach us today. Coming to us from rural Canada, my favorite contestant, my wife's favorite contestant on Alone. Michelle, great being with you.
Thanks for having me here, Brian.
Man, so I don't know where to start here. I'm just giddy. I'm talking with a real life celebrity that people don't know about, but I'd rather spend time with you than I don't even know who it is, Brad Pitt, whatever it is. Yeah, this is great stuff. So give us just the background. I'm curious on this Alone that's kind of been taking off. It's on History Channel. 10 items you get. Like, I don't know anything about the backstory. Do they get you guys all together in a room? Do they examine your 10 items? What was it like before the episode started?
Right. So, it's a TV show. You guys get to see the finished product, but it took a long time to pull that all together. We film it, and then they edit it, and then you watch it on TV. So when you're watching it on TV, we're not living out there anymore. We've had about half a year, maybe a year, sometimes depending on editing and time, to kind of come to terms with whatever our situation ended up being out there. But previous to that, you have to apply to be on the television show, or in some cases, maybe they've headhunted you. So maybe you're a super big name in the US, or you have a huge YouTube channel or something like that, and then they've already found you. I didn't have any of those things. I applied to be on the show. So I had watched the first season and a couple of episodes on the second season, way after they had aired, because I don't have television. I don't even watch it. It's just people kept telling me I need to watch this television show. And I was like, with what time? I'm raising chickens. I've got to my son is, pre-kindergarten age. I'm working a dozen different jobs, making ends meet, and I'm like, watching television isn't a priority. And so I watched it, and 2 episodes into the second season, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm going to apply to be on that show. What do you think about that? He was like, well, honey, he's like, I don't want to tell you. I didn't want to tell you, like, you should apply to be on it, because obviously there's some suffering. There's some heartache. There's a lot of stresses and a lot of things going on with it. And he's like, but I definitely think you should apply to be on it. and so I did. I applied to be on the show, and they had already cast the next season. So that was season 4. They'd already cast that season. Season 5, they had a redemption season. So obviously I wasn't making that one. And then season 6, they called me up, and they had told me at the time there was 21,000 other applicants. So you get your 10 items. You have to choose them from a preconceived list. Everything is really heavily vetted down to the brand of your underwear. Everything is analyzed and looked at. It's just to try to make the playing field as level as possible and making sure nobody's cheating.
So what? You go into a room and you pull out all the stuff, your backpack, and they go, you can have that, you can't have that, or what's that work like?
Yeah, exactly. And it's all done previously, like before you even leave to go for like onto location. You have pictures of your stuff. You have a list of what you're bringing. It's all pre-approved. And then there's a final check. Like they go through everything. I have a nose ring, they're like, you can't have that. You got to take it out, right before launch, before the helicopter comes for you, take it out. Like you're not allowed earrings and stuff like that. And so, so they go through everything one last time, and you pack your 10 items and your, into your backpack, and you grab your big Pelican case of camera gear, and away you go. You're on the helicopter, and then they drop you.
Now that's another curiosity I have, because I've done, a good bit of filming with things. I've got a show on Amazon Prime called Phantom Lake, and a bunch of other stuff that's going on. And I just, doing the camera thing is just a pain in the ass. It just is.
So irritating.
Well, I was watching you guys, all of you guys, you all got such great footage. How? Are they incentivizing you? Like every minute we use, we're going to give you a bonus? Or what do they do to keep you guys on the camera? Because I'm thinking, if I'm surviving, the last thing I'm going to do is turn on a camera. How do they get you to do that so well?
So there's 10 episodes, or some cases there's been 11 episodes. So it works out to be about an hour per person. So you hand in a lot of crap footage, period. Right. Just full stop. Half of what you film, like over half, 99% of what you film is completely unusable. And then some poor sucker sits in that editing room going through it and goes like, oh, hey, this sequence we can use for something. this actually, you can see what they're doing. Their audio is clear, and otherwise they have to try to piece together your story out there from it. So when you agree, part of the stipulations that when you go on the show is that you are going to film basically everything you do. So my camera was rolling. I'd wake up in the morning and my camera would be set up from the night before. I'd have to swap out the battery because it would be dead from the cold, and hit record. And, you just film and you drag that camera around everywhere. And I mean, so some of those shots, like you can see me walking in, or, pick anybody. You can see them walking in, then you can see them doing something, and then they're walking away from it. You have to move that camera a dozen different times. And there were days when I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm just, over dragging that camera around, But then if something really awesome happens, it's not on camera. It's not going to, if you didn't film it, it didn't happen. It's not going to make the cut, right? So, you just make peace with that camera after the first couple of weeks, and you just drag it everywhere and film everything and talk on it, and I don't know. Yeah.
And is there some boat coming every day and giving you fresh batteries, or do they give you a solar charging station, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do get a charging pack and to keep your batteries kind of topped up and stuff. But they do, like for me, what they did is it's called like a blind media drop. So there's just a predetermined location. They say like they give you a wet bag. You put your media into it. You can only use it for your media. You're not allowed to use it for anything else. And then you just go and drop it off there. So like a place on a rock or whatever, and you're not allowed to interact with them at all. So it's like when all my batteries were dead or I was running low on media cards or whatever, then there would just be a drop zone there, and then they would come and swap it out for me. And you're not allowed interaction with them because the name of the game is literally alone. Yeah.
Right. Alone. Right. I got alone.
Yeah,
it's like they named the show for that or something like that. That's kind of crazy.
But people are like, okay, but no, like where does like you actually get food, right? And I'm like, no, you actually really don't. And they're like, well, but there's really somebody there filming, right? Like they have a tent by you. And, you say like, no, really, there's not. Like really, there's none of that. Like, honestly, there really
alone.
Isn't. You're really actually alone. And you randomly pick your spot. So they kind of have like 10 locations. So in my group, they had 1 through 10 painted on the bottom of rocks, right? So 10 rocks, 10 numbers. And then we used my hat and we put everybody's name in there, and they drew the names out of the hat, and you went and picked your rock. So whatever rock you picked, that's where you are being dropped. So there's no, I don't know how they did it on other seasons, but that's how they did it on mine. So then, even your location is completely randomized, and you don't get to know. So I was location number 3. Doesn't mean anything. What does number 3 mean to you? Like it didn't mean anything to me. You don't get a map. You don't get an overview. You don't get to fly over or a topographical, nothing. Like there's no GPS. They when they land you down, you're not allowed to look out the window. You're not, when they randomly fly you around in circles to disorientate you in the helicopter and stuff, and up and down and up and down. And you have to look at the camera, as they're recording you when you're getting, asking you questions and stuff that they use. So, and then all of a sudden the helicopter drops down out of the sky and there's your spot, and so you get they just dump you out the helicopter and they fly away.
So this is sort of a spoiler alert, but not really. It's not going to spoil anything for you. Michelle did not win.
Did not.
She did not win. She's one of the last ones. Even if you knew who won, it would not spoil anything for you. It was really solid. Michelle, you went, I'm trying to remember, 39 days? Or how many days did you go?
48. Yeah, 48 days.
48 days. So 48 days alone in the Arctic. Before that, how long had you ever been by yourself alone? I know you've camped and all that stuff, but literally alone, how long before that would you have been alone?
Would have been like a week and a half, where I was truly alone and didn't have a cell phone and no computer and no people and just went off into the woods. Most people will know if they can handle being alone really kind of after the first 3-4 days. Most people haven't really spent any time longer than that, really truly alone. Like being alone with no cell phone, no connectivity of whatsoever. There's no electricity running. There's no, pumping station, water station or bathrooms. They've got a friend nearby. They know where somebody is. I mean, when you're actually alone.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard. It's a little bit hard to prepare for that mental aspect of it, I guess, that maybe, I knew I could handle having been by myself for a period of time, but that doesn't compare to, a month plus by yourself with limited items and food.
So we're here in the aggressive life, not so much talking about surviving, though I like doing that. We'll keep doing that. But what I find this really fascinating about this, Michelle, is it's a really aggressive move to do something that the vast majority of the country would not be willing to do and would tell you that you're stupid to do. I mean, that's kind of what aggression is. Aggression is always aggressive because the majority of people aren't doing it. If the majority of people are doing it, then it would be called common sense. It would be called good ideas that everybody does. But it becomes aggressive when it's something you don't want to do, and you don't have the support of the masses. The masses don't understand. Did you get pushback for doing this and people saying this? I don't know why you're doing this. What was that like for you?
You're not actually allowed to tell anybody you make the show and you're leaving. You just disappear, basically. But there were some people who knew that I was doing it, and most of the people, I should say, everybody in my corner was really supportive of me doing it at that time, because they knew, right? This show was basically made for somebody, for people like me. Like you said, going camping for a week or 2 weeks isn't enough for us, right? Like we are pushing the envelope to the most extreme, possibilities that we can. So where I got pushback was when everybody found out I had gone to the show, and then you would get random folks telling you what kind of mother would leave her kid for that period of time. Well, listen, my kid is better off for me going off and doing these things. He's learned, what family really means, what love really means, how to help himself, how to look after himself, how to appreciate the things that we give him in life, all of these things. So I get pushback like that, or I get, well, how fair is it to your husband to have to look after stuff? We're partners. There's nowhere where I signed up in my marriage that said I'm a servant and a slave, and I'm not allowed to go off and do things that are going to benefit our family in the long run, that are something that I have my heart and set my soul desires to go and do these things. And, I chose a partner who's supporting who supports me in all of these things, like I support him in his things. That's where you end up getting your pushback. And then people say, of course, like, well, you're crazy to go off and do something like that. Like, obviously, I passed all the psychological evaluations and all the psych tests that they have to put you through before they'll go and dump you out there. So like, no, I'm actually, sane clinically. But like you said, the term aggressive, absolutely describes me. And sometimes in a bad way, I guess, if you want. And then other ways, I see something, I'm going to go off and get it. I'm not going to wait for somebody to hand it to me. You go and get it. This television show, I applied to be on it. When they interacted with me, they're like, well, why should we choose you? And I'm like, duh, obviously. Like, I want it. I want it more than anything right now. My entire focus is on doing this. So, I mean, you have to be aggressive. You have to. You're not going to make it anywhere if you're not.
And what was the hardest thing about the 48 days or whatever it was?
Honestly, the hardest part was when I knew my body was done, right? Like, I had a dirty high fever. I had the temperature spikes, and you're so hot, you're just pouring sweat, and then the chills hit, right? Where it like doubles you over. So I had that going on. I had another medical issue going on that was causing what ended up call it like constipation. But there was a serious medical issue I had going on there. On top of that, I was extremely dehydrated because I was vomiting. I had 3 days of vomiting with the fever. And I was so dehydrated, I couldn't keep down sips of water. I knew my heart was going, like, it would just kind of randomly stop. And I kind of like hit it a couple of times and like, I don't think my heart's beating and I'm getting dizzy here, like I kind of would start passing out. I knew I had to go. I knew that my body was done. But I was still waited. I still waited 3 days. I was not leaving. I was like, I think I'd rather die than I would quit, actually. I don't want to, I don't want to lose, but I don't want this to be done. Like, I am here to win it still, even though my body is like, well, no, you're done. Like, you need to go home, Michelle. I don't want to. And when I make that phone call, it is so traumatizing for me. Like, the mental whipping that it took for me to finally make that phone call was so hard, because I was like, I'll just do one more day. I'll just do another hour. I'll just do another 20 minutes, like counting myself down for it. Like when you're running a marathon, or whatever. And you're like, okay, I only have 1 mile left, or I have 5 miles, or whatever it is you have left. Like, you just count it down in your head, right? One more rep. And I was doing that with myself. And, when I had to go, I knew I had to go, but I didn't want to. And that, to get over that, took probably close to a year mentally, where so the show was airing and I couldn't watch it. Like, I'd watched a couple episodes and I couldn't watch them because, that was me. I knew it was coming for me, even though like I'm looking good, I'm trapping animals, I got all the stuff going on for me. And then, that comes. So that was, honestly, it wasn't being alone, being, trying to find my own food and water and learn the area and build my shelter and find these tasks to keep me busy and sane and all those things. Like, it wasn't hard. I was loving that. I said, you mean somebody wants to pay me to hunt and fish and trap? Like, oh, perfect. This is exactly what I want.
Well, you pretty much answered my next question. So make something up. What's the hardest thing? What was the hardest thing for you? Was it the cold? Was it the food? Was it being alone? Forget about the pain the last few days. What was the most challenging thing?
The most challenging thing really was being dropped off in an area that you have no idea anything about. Like, so I knew I was in the subarctic. Okay, like, we were 50 miles from the Arctic tree line. So I knew that. I knew that there should be rabbits. I knew that there should be, big game. I knew that there should be fish. I knew all of these things that should be, but I haven't seen it. I haven't been there. And then you get dropped off. So it's really to simulate something like a plane crash or some sort of disaster where you get dropped off in an area you don't know anything about. See, you can be really, really good. Like, where like lots of folks will tell me, they're like, oh, well, I would have done better than you. And I'm like, well, maybe, or maybe not. I guess we're not going to know because you're not going to be on the show, chances are. So
yeah, and you're not really going to go out. And you know what? You could find out. You could go out the Arctic Circle with 10 items and you don't have to
Go
get
ahead.
any fame. Go ahead and do that. Yeah, why don't you try
Go
that?
ahead, let me know.
Lose a
And
boy?
then, yeah, but then say to me, they go, well, I'm really good at this, like, I'm really good where I am. And I'm like, me too. I'm a big game guy. I'm really good at where I am. Yeah, I am, That's the difference, is when you know the area, you know where the coulees and the valleys are, you know where the animals are going for water, you know where the meadows are in that area. Why? Because you've seen it, you've been it, you've trucked around, you've looked at the maps on it, you've got a little app on your phone that gives you a general overview of an area, who owns that land. You grew up there. Yeah, I'm from northern Saskatchewan. I live in north. It's still not. I don't live 50 miles from the Arctic tree line. Like, that's not where I'm from. So that's really hard, really. It's right. You accept it and you can figure it out. But when you get dropped off in that area, you know nothing. You don't know where the animals are. You have to figure out how they move, when, how they react after a storm, how they react with the storm coming. You want to know how long they hold up for. All of those things you have to learn about that area, and you have to do it within days, because every day you're out there, you don't have food. You don't have a cushion. You're not like, oh, well, I'll just, go down to the KFC and grab myself some lunch. Like, no, you have to learn all of that in a really short period of time.
Right. So you have 10 items to take with you. For you, that included an axe, a multi-tool, trapping wire, paracord, on and on and on. If you had to go back and do it again, is there something you would have taken off your list and something you would have taken that was on your list?
Well, if I had that
wasn't on your list.
Yeah, if I had that same location again, obviously my fishing line was completely bunk. Never saw a single fish, but I mean, you don't know that till you're there. But I had a bow, and I had somebody. So from the time I knew I made the show, I had 1 month to prepare to leave.
Oh wow!
So it's not like I had half a year. They told me I made the show and I had a month. So you got to, liquidate. I had to sell and give away all my farm animals. I quit my jobs. Lars had to move to Saskatoon to be with his dad full time here, because he lives in Saskatoon so he can work. He had to do that. My grandma had to move out of her home because I was her primary caregiver. We had to find her a place. We had a long list of stuff I had to do. On top of sourcing these items that I didn't have, or making sure that they were to spec and whatever. So anyway, I got a bow. Well, the arrows that I have, they were not acceptable arrows. So I had to find somebody to make me arrows to go with this bow that I could take on the show. So I had a 45-pound recurve bear bow. And I found 2 people because I wasn't just going to leave it to chance. So the first person ended up, be like, yeah, no, I can make these arrows to spec. It's all good. I got this. And then they ghosted me, 2 weeks in. I'm like, well, that sucks. Luckily, I have this other person online also making me the arrows. So he was making me like a wood shafted arrow with a special broadhead that I needed to take with like real feather fletching and whatever. So I get them the morning I fly out. So it's not for me. It's not for me lack of trying. Like this is the reality I live in, right? I don't live in somewhere where everybody's making handcrafted arrows. It's just not a thing, right? Saskatchewan's population is just over 1 million people. It's not like we have, our entire province. So anyway, I get on the airplane, we get to orientation, we finally get out onto location, we get to the archery range, I pull out my broadheads and my judo points and everything that I'm going to use with this bow, because the bow is one of my 10 items. And my broadheads fall off my arrows.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Fall right off. The glue he used and the technique or whatever, no broadheads on my arrows. And I looked at it on the ground, and I just like instantly tears, like, of frustration, because, when you see that laying on the ground, you're just like, there it goes. I need that bow. Like, that bow is so bloody important. So some of the other contestants, they had some extra arrows, and everybody was going to give me like 1 arrow, basically, but everybody's got their own custom arrows. And I was like, how am I going to shoot this bow with 8 different arrows, or 9, whatever we were allowed, 9 different arrows, 9 different draw lengths, 9 different types of arrows, 9 different velocity, weights, all of this. I'm like, how can I take this? And so I was like, I can't. My chances of even bagging a piece of game with all these different arrows, if I pick one up, and then what happens when I lose them in the bush, which happens to everybody on this, on the season, every arrow flies differently. I'm going to have to, you can't target practice with a broadhead on trees, to learn what that arrow is going to do. And so, these other arrows I was running through, through my bow, I was comfortable with how they were already flying and stuff. And then my broadheads were all falling off. So anyway, I dropped my bow and I put on the emergency ration because at the time, right, I have 3 days up there to make this choice, for 4 days. And I'm like, how can I possibly take this item? And, and then I get to my location and I instantly, 3 or 4 days in, I find moose tracks, and I was just like, and then there's this big bull and moose and there's a cow and a calf on my little area the entire time I'm there. And I would just sit there and I just watch that moose walk around out there, and I wasn't allowed to trap the moose. I wasn't allowed. And so I was just sit there and I just watch that moose. And every time I saw it walk away, I'm like, well, there it goes. There goes my moose, and I would have had a dozen 35-yard shots at this moose, So I would just sit there and I would just be so mad at myself for making those choices. And I was like, I don't know, still if I had to make that choice again, I probably would have knowing the outcome 2020, I would have put the bow on with all the different size of arrows and all the different weights and everything. But I mean, at the time, with the information that I had, I still feel like I made the right choice. Hindsight, is 2020, but yeah. So with those 10 items, apparently I didn't need fishing line. 4 feet of water surrounding me wasn't real good for fish, as it turns out.
This is one of the things that I kept thinking when I saw the episode. Just about everybody, I don't think you, at least you don't wear it on your sleeve as much as some of the other contestants. Just about everybody just said again and again, I'm in this for the money. I need this money for my family. I'm doing this so I can get my family to a new place. One contestant saying, I can't afford to take a bus ride to go see my grandfather.
Right.
And I think sitting there and I think to myself, man, bus fare isn't that much.
Yeah.
I know I'm not personally couch surfing. I'm not dealing with hunger. God's been very, very good to me. I'm very, very financially blessed. I'm not going to, but I'm going it doesn't take that much effort to get money for a bus pass.
Right.
And I'm not cracking on that person specifically. I'm not at all. I'm just saying this was such a consistent theme with everyone. I just kept thinking, these people are, for the most part, the baddest ass of the baddest ass. The level of initiative that's shown by everybody, the level of fortitude, the level of ingenuity, the level of being able to deal with pain, the ability to deal with setbacks, all of that with just about everybody was 9 or 10. And yet you got a bunch of people that have just not figured out how to make money in the regular world. Why do you think that is? Have you thought about this much?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was, to be fair, I wanted to win. I wanted the money too, obviously. Somebody's going to give me.
And to be fair, Michelle, Michelle, to be fair, to do the show for $500,000 is fine. If they ask me, if you're out there, all of you, if you ask me, I'll take it. I'm not saying I would win, but I would do it. But so the $500,000 is definitely a good incentive. No shame in envy. But it was the backstory of person after person just being in financial ruin and disaster.
Yeah. I can't speak for what, how other people live their lives. I grew up really dirt poor, right? No shoes, till school time, basically. You run the summer barefoot as you're growing. I went to the dentist for the first time when I was 16 years old, when I moved out from home. So we didn't have money for extra things. So I grew up, my dad taught me, how to hunt and fish and trap and really, I've talked about this before, so somebody has to forgive me if they're hearing me parrot it. It's just that it's the truth. My dad and I, we don't get along. We don't talk. I moved out from home, and that was the end of that. But my dad never ever told me that I couldn't do something. Right? My mom died when I was 7. I looked after a lot of stuff. I helped out with my sisters. I fished for sustenance. We hunted. All of those things. But my dad never told me I couldn't do something because it was impossible. No, I didn't. We didn't have money, but it was about, if you want something, then I guess you better go out and help yourself. If we need firewood and we need firewood split, I guess you better go and get it. If you want the garden because you want produce, I guess you better go out and get it. So later in life here, I'm busting my hump. I work all of the time, every day for financial gain, for personal gain, for self-fulfillment, all of those things, because I don't want to be poor. There's nothing wrong with being poor, but I've been there. I've done that. I can write a book on all of those things that happen when you're poor. I didn't want that anymore. I don't want it now. No, I don't need to be a multimillionaire and driving a Porsche. I just want to be able to pay my bills easily and comfortably. I want to be able to send my kid to a good school if he wants to go. I want to be able to send him to the dentist without, going, ooh, can't pay that bill, but he needs it. So I'm going to have to sacrifice in other areas. So I found a partner, my husband, Dan, who's on the same board, on board with that. We don't drive brand new vehicles. We don't have fancy things, all these things. We got good stuff. We got stuff that works for us. And we're both on the same page with our spending and our finances, going, no, we don't need to be multi-millionaires. No, but I want to be comfortable, and I don't want to have to struggle for basic life things, right? I want to be able to go to the grocery store and buy prime rib steaks if that's what I want, and not have to go, ooh, I bought those last week. I can't for the next 2 months, And I don't know if it's different for me than it is for other people, I don't consider myself poor now, and I haven't for a long time. And I don't know if that's just my mindset changed. And then my money followed it, I guess, is probably what happened. If that makes sense.
Do you think survival skills translate into making ends meet financially, or do you think they're two totally separate things?
I think they're related. I think for me, it certainly is. So I learned how to do with less. So if you look around my house right now, you'd see an old leather used couch that I bought, a couch and a love seat off of somebody. You'd find they're comfortable, they're serviceable, they're fine for me. I've got everyday normal things. I just try to look after them. I don't go out shopping. I don't fill my house up with stuff. I used to kind of be one of those people who went to fulfill myself and my feelings inside by buying things and trinkets and, get a new TV or a new this or new that. And I realized that I was wasting my life paying for those things versus living my life. So then when I go out into the bush, I was taking less and less stuff, right? Like I was like, something that I'm going to take with me that's always on my belt, always, is my Leatherman. I have they're not cheap, but I have a Leatherman and I have a nice leather case for it, right?
God bless Leatherman. Seriously.
Yeah,
there's such a thing. I mean, people say, I don't like name brand things. Well, you don't like things that work, because those guys, it just freaking works all the time.
And my husband is a Gerber guy, so he has his Gerber, and I have a Leatherman, and so it's like we have like the war of the vehicles in the house.
Well, Gerber makes baby food. They don't make knives.
He likes the quick draw pliers on them, slide them out real quick, and I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna stick with my Leatherman. I'm good. I've broken some of those Gerbers. I need a Leatherman. So I kind of have like these core items that really, really make my life really super easy when I'm out in the bush. Like I can do a lot of things, like live basically forever with these few items. And then, so that translated from survival, is directly related to how I live my everyday life, right? Like I don't have a brand new truck, because why? I don't need one. I'm got the best like looking, guide truck around. It's all like dented and scabby looking and whatever, with a big engine in it. Good for me. And so that financial security, I think, comes from, a life of making it work with what you can afford, and saving is like when you're going out into the woods, yeah, you buy the best gear that you can. It's not just about brand names and whatever else. It's about the gear that works the best for you and your situation, your skill set and your level. And then forget about the rest of it.
Well, let's incentivize people to help you financially right now. You've got legacy survival training.
Yeah.
You're trying to equipping people to survive and be on their own. What is that? If I signed up for that, what would I be getting?
Yeah, so I do a couple of different things. So right now I'm really focusing on guiding. People can pay for a hunt. So what's happening is a lot of folks, they want to hunt, but like they don't know how. Or maybe they know how to hunt, but they don't actually know what to do with the deer after they've shot it. So these people are, booking a hunt with one of my outfitters that I work with, and then I'm guiding them. So they pay for their hunt, and then with me they get the extra lessons, right? This is how you break down a deer. This is what happens after you shoot a deer. Sometimes they don't make a good kill shot. So it's about tracking the animal. How do you track it? What do you do when you come across it? How long should you wait before you track it? All of those things are included in those lessons. And then I'm also doing fishing trips. So people can book in for a fly and fishing trip, which sounds really expensive, but it's really not. And I got info on my Facebook page and wherever else for that. But people can come up fishing. I'll teach them how to, if they don't know how, to do really basic things like tie their line. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they don't know how to drive a boat. Maybe they don't know how to dock a boat. They don't know how to clean fish. All those things are included in that also. And then I also take guys out and women out on little expeditions. And really, I would have to say that probably one of the best things about the fishing trips, or say one of those little expeditions, is that there's nobody there. Like when I say there's nobody there, you can go in an airplane and you can't see anybody. You can't see anything because there's nothing there. It's wide open, or it's all forest, but there's no villages, no towns, no cities, no skyscrapers, no people, no farms, no roads. There's no roads. Everything's accessible by bush plane or snowmobile in the wintertime. And for a lot of people, they've never experienced that. So it's how quiet everything is. You get out in the boat and I just go out into the water and I shut the boat off. There's no other there's no other craft. There's no sea-doos or other people's boats. There's no kids laughing and crying. There's nobody yelling at each other or music blaring. It's the sound of nature, and that's it. And for a lot of people, that's the first time they've ever experienced anything like that. So that's one of my favorite things to do, I'd say. And one of the things I really encourage people to go and do is find that part of nature, and really, really immerse themselves in it.
So is that a pretty aggressive move for you to sell all your stuff and go do that? Or was that, yeah. I mean, how did you overcome that fear or the obstacles that would keep you from going to a totally different way of life?
It was hard, friend. When I came back from the TV show, a dog that's been beaten and it hangs its head and its tail's tucked between its leg and it walks different. That was me. You want a snapshot of what I looked like? I was scrawny. I lost all my muscle mass, and mentally, I lost. There's no second place. There's no third place, and there's no other place. There's a winner on that show, and everybody else is a loser. Yeah, you can do good, but the show's about number one. The last one standing wins. I wasn't that person. I lost. For me, in my type of personality, I wasn't just like, oh, I'll go there for a week or for the experience. Like, heck no, I was there to win. And so I didn't win. I was whipped like a whipped dog, straight up. And you have to recover from that. You have to rebuild. I'm not going to just, what it would do, like lay down and feel sorry for myself for months on end. No, when my heart could tolerate me standing up and walking across the room without me falling over and fainting, I slowly started to put on weight. I started exercising in my own house. Then I went to the gym to, punish myself to get my, because you got to kick your body out of the starvation mode where it wants to just store fat. You got to force it back into reality here. So I had to force it to start burning fat and building muscle. I had to force my mind to go. There was a point where I couldn't decide what I was going to wear in the morning. And I don't mean where people are stereotypically, oh, girls never know what they wear. No, like I'm the type of person I just put clothes on and I don't give a crap. I couldn't decide what to put on because I was so mentally defeated that I was second guessing what I was going to wear. So now translate that into my everyday life. I had to get driving again. I was in the city. My farm animals, all the things that I used to do before I left for the show was all gone. But that was no more. That life was over. It was done. Now I have to rebuild. How am I going to do? What am I going to do from this point? And really looked at it and evaluated it. And I thought, I don't have to start being a, homesteader again. I can go off and do some of these things now. Lars is in kindergarten, now he's in grade 1. Now he's going into grade 2. I've got him in a before and after school program. He doesn't need mom every single day to look after him in the sense of like washing his face. No, I've taught him how to wash his own face. He doesn't need me to wash his face. He might need a reminder to wash his face, but he knows how to do those things for himself. He knows where to put his clothes. They're not scattered all over his floor, right? I taught him where to put them. He doesn't need me there to tell him, right? You trust him, you let him go. He's going to figure that stuff out. So I thought, why don't I go away to work, go do all this guiding, that I'm focusing on and this training and stuff. Lars can come with me when the time is right. Like he did. He spent 5 months with me up at my last camp, and then reinvent myself, right? Regrow, rebrand, became in the male dominated industry of the outdoor, like truly the outdoor world, where it's not about survival and skills and trapping animals. It's about taking guys, mostly men, out on guided hunts.
Yeah.
Like in the mountains in the Yukon, and 10-day hunt rotations off grid. It's about, black bear and whitetail hunts. So I started doing that. And then now it's full bore in that male dominated industry where I've made a name for myself.
That's good. Michelle, are you ready for the lightning round? The lightning round is I give you a topic and you have to answer it in 1 or 2 sentences. No long soliloquies. Chop, lightning answers. Are you ready for the challenge?
All right, let's do it.
Here we go. All right. Starting a fire.
Pick dry stuff as you go and keep it in your pocket.
Finding food.
Look for berry bushes. Should always be some.
Okay, now this is the problem. I always want to ask, like, you're good. You take instruction really well. Most people do not actually do. You did it. You've done it really, really well. But now I have a follow-up question. I'm always wondering, now look for berry bushes. How do I know that they're not poison berries?
Well, hopefully, the area that you're in and you've done a small amount of, leg work. But strawberries. Strawberries are across the continent. And you know what a strawberry looks like in a grocery store. Wild strawberries are just small. They look the same. It's pretty hard to miss a strawberry.
Keeping warm.
Wool clothing.
Mental toughness.
Are you going to live or are you going to die? You can choose.
Surviving the quiet of the wild.
Take stock of the sounds around you, I guess. Birds, they're loud. Rabbits rustling, they're all there. It's all noise.
Most nutrient-dense wild food source.
Animal liver.
Ew! Hate liver. All right. Best place to find water.
Low ground. Or if you wanted a long answer on that one, Brian, find the animal tracks. They'll all meet up and head towards the water. They'll spread out farther away from it.
If I'm lost and disoriented in the woods, what do I do?
Just stop. Stop moving and sit down and think about it for a minute.
Key to cooking over a fire.
You don't cook over flames, you cook over coals.
One thing you should never go into the wild without.
Oh, let's go to Leatherman.
There you go. Getting sleep in the wild.
I've never had problems with that. You should just relax. Just breathe. Rhythmic breathing. Let's go with that.
How about earplugs? Would earplugs be one of your 10 things on alone, or would that could I sneak that in my pocket? Because I find earplugs are massively helpful.
Yeah, I've never used them. I don't. It's not that. I don't know. I don't struggle with that. I can't really give you much advice for that. Earplugs, I guess. What bothers you about it?
Well, when I'm awake, I find that there's just so many cool things I want to listen to instead of going to sleep. So when I put those earplugs in, I just have a ring in my ear. It just puts me to sleep. Now the problem is, right, if I've got a bear rustling around outside of me, then I'm going to get eaten. But at least I'll have had a good sleep before I got eaten.
Small percentage of people get eaten by bears. I've never been attacked by one personally, and I've been around some bears. It'll be fine.
I know. I take all the precautions, put the food up. I have a snub-nosed 44 Magnum I always take out with me, so I never use it. I never see. It's like all these stories about bears are amazing stories, but in the end, I never see one. It's a bummer.
Yeah, I know. Guides, right? Guides, I got lots of guiding stories and stuff like that.
I know. They make for good ones around the campfire. Well, Michelle, this has been wonderful. Tell us right now where we can go to connect with you if we want to find out your stuff and hire you as a guide. If you've got books you're writing, podcasts, website, social, please take your time to advertise yourself right now.
My Facebook page is Legacy Survival Training Michelle Wohlberg. So you can search for my name. I don't accept personal friend requests on my personal Facebook page. That way, if I've got, information pertaining to my son that I want to protect, for family, obvious reasons, right? So don't bother sending me a personal friend request, but follow me on my Facebook page or on my Instagram page. It's just Michelle Wohlberg on Instagram. And really, those are the two places that I interact. I have a YouTube channel, but it's dead. I haven't dedicated the time to filming myself and editing and putting anything up yet. So those two things. And then, the outfitters that I work for right now is Squatigan Lake Lodge. That's for fishing. They're on Facebook. And then Great Gray Outfitters and Western Trophy Outfitters is for whitetail and black bear in Saskatchewan and migratory birds. And then the Yukon is Blackstone Outfitters. They have a website, no Facebook page. And all really highly reputable. You're in good hands with any one of those outfitters. Super near and dear to me, and they look after you really well. Definitely, I have no compunction working with them or recommending them at all.
Michelle, it's been an honor to get to know you a little bit and hang out with you. Thanks for being so helpful, and thank you for being on this episode of The Aggressive Life.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. For more aggressive living, head over to briantome.com. Get signed up for the mailing list to get regular shots of positive aggression sent straight to your inbox. And while you're there, you can also find articles, podcasts, and books. I'm also active on Instagram. Search Brian Tome. Special thanks to the band judges for the music. The Aggressive Life with Brian Tome is a production of Crossroads Church, Cincinnati, Ohio.